Hey guys, it's me Rebecca. So this will be the start of another weekly vlog. And so far today I've just done some cleaning and I just did some vacuuming and organizing. Like I have a basket that's full of my pajama stuff and it's kind of a mess, so I sorted that out. And yeah, and it's actually been a few weeks since I've properly vlogged. I think I've mentioned this in the past. But whenever I do a wrap up, because I post once a week, I do give myself a week off. And because I was also working on my War and Peace video and videos, I should say, as I did have to split it into two parts, just because the editing software I have this. It was saying that there's not enough storage for that thing, which was initially an hour and 40 minutes roughly, so yeah. But from one big book, I went on straight immediately to another big book. But this one is definitely much shorter than War and Peace. I think it's over 900 pages, which isn't too bad. But yeah, this is The Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk. I definitely mispronounced that name, but this is actually the second book I've read by her, or I'm reading by her. The first was, I think, Plow Your Bones Over... 1 minute, please. It was Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. Yeah, and this is, I should say, is translated by Jennifer Croft. And this is about, in the mid-18th century, as a new unrest begins to sweep Europe, a young Jew of mysterious origins arrives in a village in Poland. Visited by what seem to be ecstatic experiences, Jacob Frank casts a charismatic spell. In that decade to come, he and his increasingly fervent followers will crisscross the Habsburg and Ottoman empires as he reinvents himself again and again, converts to Islam, and Catholicism is pillared as a heretic. One moment held as the Messiah, the next the story of Frank, a well-historical figure around whom mystery and controversy swirl to this day, is an ideal canvas for Olga Tokarczuk's genius and unparalleled reach. And with this book, I had to make sure I did not get like a weird misprint or something, because instead of like the pages counting up like page 1, page 2, page 3, etc., it counts down from like what is it, page 965. So, and there are 965 pages in this book, and currently I'm on page 506, but yeah, it's like 965, 964, and so on and so forth. So that was a bit weird and a bit interesting. But yeah, we just really get to know this group of characters and expect how they're all involved and how they all kind of come into play, whether that is trying to help Jacob or working against him. How we see how Jewish people are treated during this time period, how they're not really seen as, I would say they're not really seen as people. They're looked down upon by the Christians, because in the Christians' eyes, their God or their belief is old or out of date or something of that sort, and that they are the ones, and it's almost that really that they are being punished, I guess, for what they did to Christ and for following this belief that's just not relevant anymore. I feel like I'm simplifying it, because literally these Jews, they are then given the ability to like settle down permanently anymore. They always have to be on the move. Occasionally they will have their property taken away from them. They will have their businesses taken away from them, their family taken away from them. So what I'm saying, I feel like I'm simplifying it, but it's essentially that. And we followed Jacob as he's almost prophesied, because there was a previous person who was supposed to be the Messiah, yet the Jews, I guess, don't think that's the case, as he converted, I think it was to Islam, I want to say. So they are waiting for the next Messiah who will give them hope, because it seems to them that the world is falling apart in the world will end, and they need someone who will bring the world back to life and make changes that will probably occur, and they're all like thinking of what these changes will be. And really we see the life of Jacob, how he is this young man, essentially, originally I should say, who is married off and then goes into a business run by someone by his father-in-law, someone he knows, and how Jacob, he is quite charismatic. He is someone who draws people in, and this is both a good and bad thing, as I think it's the brother of the father-in-law or someone of the sort. It's like, yes, he brings people in, but these people aren't really supporting my business. He's just kind of interfering with that, and as well, he is making a profit elsewhere. So yeah, and we see Jacob, how his family grows and how he does draw people in. He draws in supporters, and it seems like there's something almost not unhuman, but something interesting about him, because he will go into these fits at times where he will say things, see things, and that only he can hear and see, and it affects him, and these people are drawn to him when he gets into these states, because it's like, I guess they think it's like a message from God going through him. And we see how he grows his supporters, the number of supporters he has, and we also see how the rabbis who are orthodox, who want to keep things the way they are, or think that things should be the way they are, how they look down on him, and at point even label him and his supporters heretics. They try to have him arrested. He's easily able to get himself free. They really denounce them as Jewish people, and at one point Jacob even converts to Islam, which makes people fear that what happened with the previous Messiah will happen to him now. But people also see it as like the Messiah has to fall to his lowest point in order to rise up, so that's what people think. And I have to admit, at times I thought Jacob was a fraud, that he is just tricking all of these people into following him, because he enjoys being powerful, he enjoys having power, he enjoys being the center of attention. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about him as well. It seems like people are afraid, and at times he comes across like he has no fear, and there was a comment made about the fact he feels no fear, and then when people look at him, they also feel no fear, because they think he will be strong enough or powerful enough. And I don't know, this feels like he is taking advantage of the fact that these people are afraid. So yeah, so far I'm intrigued, and we did also see like how his supporters, they've kind of come together into a village of their own, and they have their own rules, their own beliefs. Like the women, they don't essentially have to sleep with just their husbands. They can sleep with anyone they want, and it's like supposed to build this connection between the community, and Jacob believes in. We see how they are trying to write to the church to get them baptized, because it will make their lives I guess, easier for them to live their lives in their own conditions, that they don't have to change who they are. Like, they don't have to shave off their beards, they don't have to be forced to eat pork. They can continue on, and I am curious on how that goes. And we also, on the Christian side of things, see how some bishops try to write to the king to renounce these people, to renounce these so-called heretics, to continue looking down on the Jews. And so, I don't know, I do find it interesting seeing these two religions, I would say, at odds with one another. But I don't, at odds with one another, who is really that the Jews are just being cast away because, like, their religion is just not relevant anymore. They're believing that religion, essentially, it seems like, to what the Christians believe in. So interesting. And besides what's happening with Jacob, it's really that there's other aspects of this novel I do like. We have, I think one's a bishop and one is someone who is related to someone who is a rabbi, who is a supporter of Jacob. And the two, they write letters to one another, and they discuss how their own writing system is different to one another, because one writes poetry, one and writes stuff that's, I guess, original, is what the bishop says, and yet the bishop also almost looks down upon the poetry, because what can you learn from poetry? Like, poetry shouldn't be read by everyone. It should be, what should be read is books that have extensive research in them, that people can obtain this research. And the bishop admits that his writing's not original. He is taking scholarship from that's already been published and adding his own viewpoint, but it's not adding really anything new. He's just, it seems like he's almost gathering everything into one big book for everyone to read. And we see as well that he doesn't want his book translated into Polish or another language. It seems like Latin is the only language he's willing to let it be published in, and yet the person he's writing to is like, that is inconvenient, I guess, or a lot of people, like peasants, women, they're unable to read Latin. They haven't learned to read Latin. They know Polish, and if you only publish your book in Polish, then it won't be accessible to a lot of people. And that is just something I find fascinating, like the accessibility of works, of writing, and the different kinds of writing. And I don't know, I find it also interesting. And we also have this character, Auntie, Yente, who was this very old woman whose family took her to with them when they went to a wedding, and she is dying, and they didn't want her to die before the wedding because it would just bring bad luck. So the I guess rabbi who was there, he gives her an amulet that's supposed to prolong her life temporarily. And she's only supposed to wear it on her neck, but instead she swallows the amulet, and we see how she's like in this in-between state. Like, she's not entirely alive, she's not entirely dead, I should say, but she is yet alive, and she's like in this in-between state where she can see a lot of things. And yeah, I just find that interesting. And I do like how with this book we do get, I guess, normal prose, but we do get a lot of, I guess, diary entries and letters that tell the story. So it is interesting seeing it from multiple perspectives, especially one. I'm not even gonna try to open this book, but it seems like this person who is close to Jacob, who, I don't know what it would be, but it seems like they're almost in love with Jacob, and it's a bit interesting. So yeah, I am curious on where else this book will go. So, yeah. I think that's all for now. I'm really hoping this vlog is not as long as my War Peace vlog. I doubt it, but still. I think that's all for now, so I'll see you next. So it's the next day, and I've done some work and whatnot, and I have done some reading of the books of Jacob, putting me on page 404, and I'm still intrigued by it. Through some elements of it, I feel like it's going over my head. But yeah, let me see how things are changing in a world. How there's this comment that's seen all over the world, and it's affected a lot of people and brings some people good luck, some people bad luck, some people think it might be related to the end of times or the start of times, depending on the religion you believe in. But also, we do get this, I guess, debate with a certain group of Jews who the Christians are saying they want the blood of Christians because of their interpretation of something that's written in their book in a Jewish book in their as well with a translation, and the Jews, the rabbis, really are trying to defend that and say, you're reading way too deep into this. Basically, it's something related to having wine on Passover and how to make bread, how you need to knead it, and who can knead it. The Christians are saying it cannot be kneaded in front of certain people, while the Jews are like, no, it cannot be kneaded by these people. So yeah, but I think it's pretty clear to the spectators that the victors are, well, the bishops, and we see how certain groups, certain people, I should really be saying, they don't really believe what Jacob and his followers promise, that they will be baptized. They think there's something else to it, that it's part of some plan, and someone who is supposed to give that letter to the bishop or someone in a high command of power didn't really read the entire letter, but gave like a synopsis of it. And basically the Jews are like, we want, keep our beards, we don't want to be forced to eat pork, we want to be Sabbath on Saturdays when we're supposed to, and it's all very questionable. And it looks like what they're asking for will not be met, as it seems like Jacob has shaved his beard, so not sure about that. But as well, we do see how these people, they take on new Christian Polish names, and how they now have two names for their, I guess, two identities, I would say. And we see afterwards, like, after everyone's been baptized except someone who is close to Jacob, who wasn't able to be baptized because his daughter was dying. And it seems like she is the first victim, I guess, in this plague that comes, where it's like all the water is essentially being forced out of a person. Like, there's diarrhea, they won't eat, they won't drink, and I think it's all quite grotesque. It's described, it's like they become this shriveled up thing. And because it happened when the Jews were being baptized, and with a Jewish man's daughter dying and being the first victim, like, the blame is on the Jews. And we just see a lot of fear, a lot of unknown, how people don't know what to do, and I am a bit scared of what might happen, because I feel like we've seen this before, where a plague comes out and a certain group of people are blamed. So I'm afraid of seeing the, I guess, more hatred that the Jews are already facing. So, yeah, definitely a lot of intrigue, I would say, on my part. So, yeah. And I think that's all for now. So I'll see you when I see you. So it's the next day, and I just got back from running a couple of errands and whatnot, and I happened to stop by the bookstore, Barnes. Why did I have to clarify? No idea. But I have been watching a couple booktubers reading the nominees for the Women's Prize for Fiction long list, and they've mentioned this book that's just been something quite interesting to me, and these booktubers are British, and the UK cover for this book is, in my opinion, absolutely beautiful, and the US cover's also nice, but I don't know, something about the UK cover, I think a lot of people in the US can relate to that, or really people in general, I think, can admit that the UK covers are typically better. But anyway, the book is Abyss Slings Towards Beijing by Alice Evelyn Yang. And this is about this girl whose father walked out on her 11 years prior, and now she's 25, and he comes knocking on her door. It seems like he's going through some things, like it's some sort of memory loss thing or something related to alcoholism, but he keeps bringing up the past, and it seems like he cannot get his story straight, like he keeps changing details or talking about details that she doesn't think is true. Like I think at one point he mentions that there's a brother even though there was no brother, so yeah. And it just sounds quite interesting, so I wanted to check it out. And I have also done some reading today of the Books of Jacob. Why did that title just escape me? I was thinking of the Luminaries, which is a completely different book. But anyway, I'm on page 312. Yeah, 312. I do plan to do some more reading today, but I just wanted to update now is that we do see how a couple people in Jacob's, I guess, clan or his believers, they do die, and he does from the plague, and he does try to heal him, and he's not able to, and it seems to discourage him or affect him. And I didn't notice that we're not getting Jacob's perspective at all. Everything we're being told is from other people's perspective, which is something I find quite interesting. But we see how Jacob and his followers, they've been baptized, and I should also have mentioned or clarified it. Not clarified, but I want to correct myself from yesterday in the sense, like I think I mentioned they were using both names. Jacob wants them to only use the Christian name and their Christian names and be used to that, so. But we see how they go to the king, try to get an audience with him, and we see that Jacob's been arrested, and there is a trial where he is being challenged against what he says, being almost tested to see if he knows what he's talking about, and the person translating for him, a character named Moalata, I definitely mispronounced that. I mean, okay, the people, not, I guess they're also accusing him, but questioning him, there we are. They don't know his relations to Jacob, and because he's translating, he's able to add something to help Jacob's case. He's also able to tell Jacob something, so yeah, we see that. And I do find that interesting. But also we see how people who are his followers are being questioned, and they want Jacob to look as guilty as possible without really admitting it themselves, because they think the Messiah, which they think Jacob is, needs to fall to the lowest point, and that would be prison then. we see how he's kind of present, but not really. Like, he's taken to this place, blanking out the exact term, but in a letter given to the father there, it's like almost internment and not imprisonment, which is very interesting the way language works in his novel. But yeah, it seems like something has happened to Jacob in his imprisonment, as he just seems like more drawn in. Like, it seems like he was beaten, and perhaps even worse, as he's more well behaved. No, that's wrong. He's more subdued or more. There's a, yeah, not obedient, but he's quieter. He's not. Again, he's just keeping to himself. He seems almost afraid, or at least in the eyes of other people, he is afraid. I guess because we don't get his perspective, we don't know what happened to him when he was in prison, and also we don't know what his overall plan is. So I am intrigued by that, and we see how his wife is imprisoned in a way, or really living on the estate of this person, this woman who Moada knows, and Hana doesn't seem to like it. It feels like she's being imprisoned herself, and she's not been baptized and she doesn't want to, and she ends up passing out to prevent her baptism. And also, with this plague going about, it's interesting because it's almost being used as, like, in the eyes of people, like a weapon against, in this war of religions. It's the Jews targeting Christians or something of that sort, and whoever has, I guess, or really it's like whoever has the strongest beliefs is the one who will live through this. So yeah, and we see how the Jews who were baptized, they thought, oh, not only with God they would be immortal, but also on earth. And yeah, we see that's not widely, or that's not correct, as they do die shortly after their baptism. So there's that, and it's just a lot of people are, there's a lot of unknown and uncertainty, I guess, and I'm just intrigued, I guess, on what happens next. And yeah, I think, oh, and I should also I forgot to mention this point yesterday, that when Jacob at one point they make a comment about, like, there almost being a female messiah he thinks will come into fruition, and I don't know if that will be a thing or if he thinks that's actually gonna happen or what, but I just thought that was interesting, the idea of a female messiah, because typically it's like, oh, men are the one who will save the world and all of that stuff. Like, it's almost like with a female messiah, it's given women some authority to help, to assist really in saving the world, and I don't know, I just also like that. So yeah, I think that's all for now. So I'll see you. And it's the next day, and so far today I've just done some work and whatnot, and I have done some more reading of the books of Jacob. Put me on page 200. I might do some more reading today, I will see about that. But still liking it. We see Jacob, how he wants to know if, like, he thinks someone has not abandoned him, has betrayed him, and he does learn who it is, and in that person almost falls from grace, or not falls from grace, but they lose trust. They lose the trust that Jacob had in them, and their closeness to him, and they explain, like, why they did what they did, that he had to fall to his lowest in order to rise up again if he is really the Messiah, like he claims. Yeah, we see him, Jacob, his years of being imprisoned, how he is not supposed to have any privileges and or anything of that. And yeah, we see how the guards are bribed to let people in to see him, how they're being bribed to give him gifts and whatnot. And we see how slowly things like he seems to gain more and more privileges. Like he's only in prison because he has to stay in the place where he's at. And we see how when the priors change, the prior is the head of the. I forgot what it's called. Apologies. How they change and try to restrict him, but even then, like they're under his thumb. So, but we see how things are changing in the world. Generally, how the previous king of Poland died, and then a new king in power, and it seemed like Russia was unhappy with what the king was running things, or how he was running things, so they tried to take over, and there is a war, and Jacob was at fight against the Russian army, and they, I guess, not succeed, they gave the building to the Russians, and we see how Jacob and his family get out of there, and Jacob, with his family, they also go through change, because his son, his first son with Hannah, dies. She gets pregnant again with another son who I think also died, and then Hannah, she falls extremely ill, and with the fact there was a pregnancy where when a daughter was not even baptized, or when she was just baptized, had died, and that affected her. And we see that Hannah dies, and we see how that affects Jacob, how he's just hurting a lot, and he is keeping his oldest daughter close and protecting her. We see how protective he is over her, and in the sense when guards or people or men from the Russian army, they try to find her, or they're around and there's drinking involved, he hides her to protect her from being assaulted. We see how much he cares for his oldest daughter, how he just wants to keep her close and make sure she's safe. And I do like how he's, in the end of the day, he's just a father and he's trying to protect his child, so I do like that. And we see how Jacob and people close to him, people he selected, they get out of Poland, and we see how they are building up, I guess clan would be the best phrase, but I don't think so, and he is a leader. Again, he's acting like a leader again, and some of the things he does is just a bit weird, especially when it comes to the women, like, or really, yeah, because he has two women undress themselves in public, and it's like, oh, those two are right above in my hand. I don't know, they've risen. And he has this, I don't even know what to call it, this weird thing where he likes being breastfed. This is the grown man who likes being breastfed. I'm reading those sections, I'm just like, what the fuck am I reading? So, yeah, we just see how the world is changing, how people are changing. We see how people die, and how... Why do I keep forgetting her name? The old, she's called Ava now, but I think when she was baptized, she had another name once. Ava. How she's grown and becoming a young woman. So, yeah, seeing this is just, I don't know, it's still all quite interesting, and I am intrigued to see where this goes next. But yeah, I think that's all for now. I have some more work I need to do. So it's the next day, and I've done some work and whatnot. And I don't know in my previous vlogs if you remember this lamp, but there was a different couch here. We just moved some furniture around, and I got a better looking couch. So yeah, but I have done some reading of the books of Jacob, and I did some reading last night. And I'm on page 74. And I wanted to update now, even though I want to try to finish this book today, but if I don't, I don't. It is what it is. But yeah, we see how with Jacob and his followers, how he has plans and he is setting those plans in motion. And one of those plans would be getting them out of debt. Like you can imagine with everything they've gone through in the past, maybe, I don't know, 30 years, maybe a bit less than it. They've racked up quite a lot of debt, and they need to follow it up. They need to what's the phrase? Pay it off. Like Jacob, he gets assistance through his nephew, and they try and start this business, which doesn't go through. When he is living in Austria, tries to get his daughter to kind of almost seduce the emperor, while Jacob spends time with the emperor's mother, who also has a lot of power. And the emperor's mother does die, and the emperor kind of like, he and Eva are close temporarily, and then something happens and he just starts acting cold towards Jacob and Eva, and we see how they're falling into hard times. And something I'm liking is that over time people are they're not only losing faith in Jacob, but they're just so fed up with how he's behaving and really how he's treating others. Like, he almost doesn't treat his followers like they're people. Like, he degrades them and he pushes people to their limits, and we see how people have broken off from him. And I don't know, I just find that quite interesting. And we also see how there's changes happening in the world with the whole Enlightenment period, and how that is affecting people. How some people see it as a good thing, while others see it as it's not as good thing anymore. Like, people see, some of the characters, I should say, view it as like, if you follow the Enlightenment, you're mistrustful, and I don't know, that's very, I guess, intriguing, I would say. But we do see as Jacob, he's growing older, and his health isn't what it used to be. Like, he's just getting sicker and sicker as time goes on. And yeah, this intrigue on what the breaking point for him is, if he will still have followers by the end of this narrative. So yeah, I guess I'm just thinking how the world is changing, how characters are changing, how characters grow and change. I don't know, I just find it so interesting seeing like where they start off to where they are now, and how they're all reflecting on that. I don't know, I just find it again intriguing and interesting. So yeah, I think that's all for now. So I'll see you next. So it's later the same day, and I had just finished the books of Jacob like just now, and overall I liked the novel. I liked the story, and I'm giving it 4 stars. I think I forgot to mention earlier another aspect of this novel I like this about dreams. Jacob believes that when he and Ava dream, that it's their minds, it's their, I guess, subconscious, unconscious, whatever it is, trying to tell them something, trying to help them in some way, and I did like that. And we see with what it has. As Jacob is dying, he's dealing with some family things. Turns out the nephew who's trying to help him is actually in debt himself and was trying to use Jacob to get out of debt, and that doesn't go well for him. And one of Jacob's sons is someone who he goes around town sleeping with different women, and these women are scared because they end up pregnant and have babies from him, and they leave their babies with Ava, who pays them off, and it's also putting them more in debt. And she does try to reason with her brother, but he won't listen as he thinks he'll be heir to his father's stuff. And we see as Jacob dies and how he's buried, how it is believed that his essence will live on in Ava's. He will be, she will be Jacob's witch show. So, yeah, we don't really see that. We do see as she inherits his debts, and we also see like how people are just bringing up his history and everything, and it's almost like slandering him and bringing into more awareness of stuff. And we see, however, struggles with trying to deal with the debt. Like, she's not really able to pay it off even when she dies. And we just see as the characters, like, they all go their own separate ways, and we learn how they each died, and we learn stuff about their descendants, which I did find really interesting, actually. Like, the amount of research the author put into this novel is quite interesting, quite fascinating. Through at times it did feel like I almost felt like I was reading a list. Like, it's like, oh, this person died from this person died from that, and this is what happened. And yeah, and I should mention another thing I like, this auntie who was, her soul was dead, I guess, but her body was still, or her soul had moved on, I should say, but her body was still alive, and her family put her in a cave to hide her, really. And she sees what has been going on, she sees the entire thing, and she has slowly, in a way, she's also slowly moving on. Through her body becomes like diamonds, or I don't fully understand how that worked, but it's almost as if she is narrating the story after everything. So I did find that interesting, and something I like this because of everything that has happened after everyone's deaths, like with the Holocaust, and because the story takes place in Poland or something, a Warsaw uprising, I believe it was, and books and notes and history were lost, and there was a mention on one of the bishops who wrote this book how it was utterly destroyed because it was burned. Like, there's this nothing to remember you by, and the knowledge that you try to pass on is lost. And if that knowledge hadn't been lost, like, who knows what would have happened, what would have been different. And I did find that interesting. And yet I did mention this now, that our history or our story is lost in the sense, like, this bishop he did have a garden that was also destroyed, so anything that to remember him by is this gone, and it's quite terrifying to think that then no one's going to remember us, and then we're just another story that passes through this world. And yeah, I don't know, overall, I like the typhoon. At times, things take over my head, but this is me. This was quite unsweet, and Jacob, oh my word, was he this unlikable, but I don't know, he seemed to actually think that he is the Messiah, but it's this, I don't know, he's not a perfect character. He is flawed, he makes mistakes, he is an utter asshole, in my opinion, as he's as some of his actions, I mean, it's almost described as arrogant, I would say. So yeah, overall 4 stars, and I will talk about what I will be reading next tomorrow. So yeah, that's all for now. So it's the next day, and as you saw, I did go out today, and I also tried something, I guess, a bit new when it comes to filming, as I did try to add a bit more, I guess, proper lifestyle content in this video, with those clips of me going to the grocery stores and whatnot. And as soon as I got home, I put everything in the fridge as I was hungry, but yeah, I just bought some vegetables, some cheese, some meats, and yeah, and I also did go to a couple, like, I guess, specialty food stores, local food stores that me and my family like going to just to buy some snack bits, I guess. So yeah, and as you also saw, I did go to a library book sale, and I did buy 4 books for $7, and in no particular order. I should mention I'm quite tired and I'm not really in the mood to do synopsis, so yeah. But the first book I got was Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I Fell in Love with Hope by Lankali. I don't even know where I'm gonna put this on my bookcase, as I do organize my bookshelves alphabetically by the author's last name, but I guess I'll just put it in the L section. Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. And finally, Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut. So yeah, very much excited to read all of them eventually. And I did start a new book today, and it's The Yard by Alex Gratian. I definitely mispronounced that name, I feel like, but this is about, in Victorian London, a violent cesspool of squalid depravity. Only 12 detectives, the murder squad, are expected to solve the thousands of crimes committed here each month. Formed after the Metropolitan Police's spectacular failure in capturing Jack the Whipper, the murder squad suffers the brunt of public contempt. But no one can anticipate the brutal murder of one of their own. A Scotland Yard inspector has been found stuffed in a black steamer trunk at Euston Square Station, his eyes and mouth sewn shut. When Walter Day, the squad's new hire, is assigned to the case, he finds a strange alien. Dr. Bernard Kingsley, the yard's first forensic pathologist. Their grim conclusion: this was not the sum of them bizarre murder. It appears that the police, possibly the squad itself, are being targeted, and the devious killer shows no signs of stopping before completing his grim duty. But Inspector Day has one more surprise, something even more shocking than the crimes: the killer's motive. So yeah, with this, I'm on page 56, and I'm not entirely, I guess, in the story. There was something about the writing style that's just something about it there's nothing very connected to, but I am intrigued and we see how after the failure in capturing Jack the Ripper, how the public have almost lost trust with the police and look down on the officers, and when they, who's newly arrived from Devon, who it doesn't seem he has a lot of experience when it comes to solving murders or being a, I think, detective inspector or someone working in this field of police work. There's, I guess, he has a lot of self-doubt in this, and like, he wonders if he's good enough for this job. He worries he won't, that he's way over his head, or that he'll be fired. But it seems like the person who was on before him, who is very high, almost not in leadership, but high regarded, and who resigned after the failure of the Jackie the Ripper case, was the one who recommended him. So there is something, and Day is given the opportunity to pass this case on to someone else in the squad if he thinks it's too much for him, and he thinks he can handle it, but also because the other detectives on the squad knew the detective who was killed and were probably friends with him, they won't be exactly clear-minded when trying to solve this case, which makes sense. And we see how Day, in his personal life, he is really there because his wife Claire wants him to be in London and on Devon, and if he quits or whatever, she will be disappointed. And we see that she did come from somewhere, or from a family where they were quite wealthy and well off, and he's not making that much, it seems like, and he wants to provide for his wife and provide what she deserves, and make, I guess, almost make up for the fact he's not what her family probably expected of him. Like, they probably expected her to marry wealthy as well. So yeah, and we do get the perspective of the killer, and it seems like he is quite friendly with one of the police officers who is on the scene, and he has this young boy with him. Like, I won't say in his possession, because it seems like the boy had a family before him, and the boy's not really, I guess adapting to his new reality. So I am curious about that. And with one of the other detectives who's working this case, Hammersmith, he is leaving Kingsley's office after examining the body, and he comes across this man whose last name is Blacklake, I believe it was, which isn't his real last name. He probably doesn't even remember his real last name, but it's more of his his job. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh my word, I'm so tired, I'm so sorry. And he probably sneaks into people's houses, robs them. And it seems like he was in the middle of this when he saw something in a chimney, and Hammersmith and Blacklake take out the body, and it's a 5-year-old boy. So, yikes! I'm curious if that's related to the killer, as when he mentioned the boy who's already around him. I guess he doesn't want to find a new child. So I'm curious if the killer had to dispose of this previous child somehow. So yeah, and yeah, so far I'm just intrigued on where this goes. So yeah, I think that's all for now. I am, as I said, I'm quite tired. So I'll see you when I see you. it's the next day, and it's also the end of this vlog, and I am here to give some of my final updates, as I'm just quite tired and I just want to lie down. I just had a long day. My mom and I decided to go to this tag sale event in a town on the shoreline of my state, which is quite a drive, but the town in itself is just something we just enjoy being in. It's just extremely beautiful, as you saw. And on the way back, we saw signs for a couple tag sales. One in a town next to near that town, which we also like. And I did get one book, that one, which is Aftertaste by Daria Lavelle. And then I just did some grocery shopping and whatnot. And on my way home, any town close to mine, right next to mine actually, there was another tag sale, and, not tag sale, book sale. And I got Shogun Part 1 by James Clavell. Quite a blue selection of books today. And yeah, I just got home, and this morning before I left I did do some reading. I am gonna read some more, plan to do some more reading a bit later. I just wanted to finish this video before it got too dark, but I'm on page 94 of The Yard, and I'm still not like fully in it, but we also see like Hammersmith, who is the constable who found that boy Nachumi. He worked in a coal mine as a young kid, and he feels like how his experience on a coal mine is why he feels so deeply of what happened to this boy, even who an inspector who was nearby, he was probably just a Chinese rep who was hired illegally, and the family who hired him didn't want to deal with the consequences, so they left him. Like, he's basically being told to let his case go, but he was passionately about it. Which I do like these detectives, they're overworked. Like, there's so many cases out there, and they're so limited in their manpower that's like they have to pick and choose essentially on what case is solvable and what case remains cold, and I do find that intriguing. So yeah, I think that's all for now, and that's the end of this video. And if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below telling me what you've been up to recently. If you want to, please subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on any social media, then all those things are in the down bar below. I'll see you guys next time I post a